Hello everyone and welcome back to more AEW on TEW 2020. We are continuing our road to New Year's and to the Revolution pay-per-view, as we're on the second week of December on our show of Dark and Dark, starting off really hot with Kota Ibushi defeating Shima. Abby then gets her in-ring debut as Abby by defeating Kylie Ray. Garza Jr. defeats Shawn Dean. Kana defeats Diamante. Donovan Dijak defeats a new graduate in Derek Losley. Derek Losley is really bad, but I wanted to give Dijak a little bit of something to do. Dragon Lee and Bandito defeat Matt Cardona and Dustin Rhodes. Eddie Kingston defeats Michael Nakazawa. Nathaniel Murphy defeats Lee Johnson. Brian Cage defeats Griff Garrison. Serpentico defeats Patrick Scott. And Adam Page defeats Darby Allin. Now, for once, we have something a little bit different. This is on the pre-show. And we have this random group of people. So what this is, if you can read the segment title, we have D&D going on. Trust me, this will go somewhere very interesting, but it does start off kind of boring. As things get really, really weird, I might make this into a separate episode, but for now, since we're pretty early days, I'll just be adding this on at the, just at the beginning of each one, eventually, because things will eventually get very, very weird. Trust me, I have a little bit of this planned out. Things are going to make no sense, but it'll be fun. Anyways, D&D campaign started in this week. Brandon Cutler, since he's injured, he has a torn quad, I believe, is Cutler's injury. He offers to host a game of D&D. Luther plays a Tiefling Warlock. Orange Cassidy is a human bard. Peter Avalon and Leva Bates are both elf sorcerers. Serpentico is a lizard folk monk. And Warhorse is a minotaur barbarian. The session is pretty boring. It's a lot of world building. Also, by the way that this is kind of booked is I have it on in-game as pre-show of Dynamite. How it will actually be is I'm essentially having this as like a Being the Elite series, so, it's something that they have online. It's Brandon Cutler's D&D Hour. You just upload it to their YouTube or whatever, so, just in order to put it in the game, I have it as pre-show of Dynamite. So yeah, they start off, they get everything together, get why they're going on this journey, all their motivations. Orange Cassidy's probably just because, hey, these people showed up, sure, why not, let's go kill a dragon. That's their quest, by the way, they're going to kill a dragon. And that dragon is near the starting village. They head to a nearby cave where the dragon is said to be, come across a group of goblins. They pretty easily beat those goblins, no one gets hit, and yeah. They end the session with they see an orc who's leading a group of goblins through a ritual. Again, this is really out of nowhere, really oddly specific, but trust me, there are big plans for this one, and things are going to get really, really frickin' weird. Anyway, to start off the actual show, FTR is in the ring, and they are not in their ring gear. They're all wearing suits. Kurt Angle, Charles Betts, and FTR, they're all in suits. Kurt Angle has a mic. He says, "Since people don't seem to be wanting to take this open challenge seriously, I've had to resort to some drastic measures. Because Chris Jericho and his inner circle have failed to allow anyone else to challenge for these titles, the FTR Open Challenge for the World Tag Team titles has been cancelled. Dax and Cash already have their challenges for the New Year's Mega Show in the private party, so we see no need to continue on this challenge. I'm sorry for everyone in the back that was looking forward to challenging for these titles, but Jericho has managed to ruin everything for everyone. which is especially rude considering how close we are to the Christmas season. We could probably have, like, either next week's or the week after's show be our Christmas special. I don't know. Might do that. Who knows? Jericho's music then begins to play as he comes onto the ramp, and Jericho is noticeably all by himself. He seems pretty pissed, and he says, "You know what? This is my fault. Kurt, you're just canceling the open challenge because you're embarrassed. You'd be embarrassed if your guys lost the titles before the New Year's. So what if we were the only ones challenging for those titles? That just means we have the initiative, Kurt. You know what? Fine. Run away with your tail between your legs. But don't think that we're not done going after those damn titles, Angle." And pretty much right as he finishes, all of the inner circle, they rush the ring. I could only fit 3 of them in there because 8 people max. Maybe I should have had some people unrated. Who knows? This is not going to be a good show, by the way, rating-wise. I've changed things up with how I book things, and I've actually started outlining things beforehand. So, it's a start for me to actually start planning things. Anyways, Inner Circle, they rush the ring, they overwhelm Kurt Angle and FTR. Their whole group is just FTR. And they take a little bit to really get into it because they are all in suits, but eventually they do manage to push them off at least a little bit. Inner Circle run off. Jericho says that Angle is making a mistake. And eventually, they just they all leave. So the Open Challenge is canceled. FTR, they have to focus on Private Party, and the Inner Circle is the only one doing anything with the Open Challenge. Our opening match, Pac defeats Andrew Everett in 9 minutes with a shooting star press. Andrew Everett with a 50. Really? Manager, yeah, that's... Wow. A 50 for Andrew Everett. Afterwards, Pac stares down Brian Pillman Jr., who was at ringside with Sting. Stares him down, he taunts him. Eventually, Pillman, he rushes into the ring. He gets face-to-face with Pac. And Pac, he's just kind of smirking. He's just smiling to himself. Dijak and the Hit Squad, they head in. Sting, he looks around and is like, hey, we might want to go. He's especially stepping back because he sees that Dijak has a steel chair with him. There's no mics, but Pac, he can be heard by the mic saying, make your choice, Pillman. Brian Pillman Jr., he's kind of looking around. He sees Dijak with the chair. And eventually he just kind of turns back to Pac, gives a nod. It's over to Andrew Everett. He helps him up. He stares at things like, alright, you know what? We'll get him next time. Until Pillman, swerve of the century, he low blows Andrew Everett, stands tall above Everett, who he just lost a match to Pac, and now he's been low blown? Whatever. Dijak heads into the ring, he gives the chair to Pillman, and Pillman, he's beating down, he's going real hard into Andrew Everett. And he's staring at Sting this entire time. He says how, he's going to be better than his father ever was, Sting, he wanted to make Pillman Jr. as good as his dad. He wanted to make him as good as Flying Brian, but that's just not going to happen. There isn't really any replacement for Flying Brian, because Brian Pillman Jr. is going to be better. So, he doesn't need to hang on to the past. He doesn't need to hang on to that family name. So, he's going to town. He's yelling at Sting this entire time. And eventually, Pillman just kind of tosses the chair at Sting. Probably intentionally missing, but whatever. And Pac nods approvingly as Pillman vents his frustrations and joins Brutality Inc. Adequate gimmick. He succeeded at turning into a heel, so that's something at least. So, finally, doing something with Brian Pillman Jr. See where this story heads out. Maki Ito defeats Elena Black real quick. And then Abby comes down to the ring. And Maki, she looks a bit upset. And Abby, she has a mic. She asks Maki, what's wrong? And Maki just says, you're not the Abaddon that I know. You're a fake. You're Abby. not Abaddon. Remember me? It's me, Maki. And Abaddon, she looks kind of confused. And then eventually just kind of, you see this expression on her face just kind of click eventually. He says, "Oh, you mean you know the Abyssal One? Don't worry, Maki-chan. She's still here, deep within me. I'm just here to make things more pleasant for you. After all, the Abyssal One is hideous and disgusting. Maki-chan aims to be the cutest. Chris-chan knew this, so she wanted to change me so you would be as cute as you could possibly be. Maki-chan needs to be surrounded by the cutest, and the Abyssal One is not cute." So kind of, we still don't really know exactly what's happened with Abaddon turning into Abby, what all the Chris Statlander stuff was about, but apparently it has something to do with Maki. You know, she's always about being the cutest, and Abaddon, with all the face paint, you know, all the zombie stuff, not exactly that attractive. Without the face paint, definitely looks a lot better. So, you know, that's kind of like, alright, we need to make sure that Maki is pushed up to this top pedestal, that Maki is the one who is the cutest in the world, and that's what Chris Statlander and Abaddon tried to do. We'll see where this goes. Lance Archer squashes Sunny Kiss. This is leading somewhere, but doesn't really have anything right now. Shawn Spears then defeats Darby Allin. Actually, that's surprisingly high rated. And after the match, Shawn Spears is visibly pissed and decks Darby on the back of the head as he's coming down from the top rope, you know, from a celebration. Spears continues to beat down Darby until he doesn't, you know, he's not interested in stopping Spears. Eventually, refs come in, they separate Spears, and we'll find out what this is all about in the future. Speaking of things that we'll find out in the future, we see backstage Chris Jericho and Taz. Cameras have come in too late to really see what they were talking about, but we see them agree to something. They shake hands, and they go their separate ways. Yeah. After this, it cuts right down to on stage, where Hikaru Shida is in the ring. She has a mic in hand, and she says, "The AEW's women's division is taking the world by storm. Have to thank the arrivals of Kairi Hojo and Mayu Iwatani for that. That both of them have given a title opportunity, with our questions as to who shall face me when. So, if I may be so bold, I wish to ask that the two of them have a match tonight to determine who faces me at New Year's and who will face me at a later date. I know that both of these women are wonderful workers and know that they will be able to shock the world with their sheer talent and abilities. So, do you agree to these terms, Mayu and Kairi?" And then Mayu and Kairi, this got cut off by, they come in, they stare each other down, and then they look at Shida, they look at the title, they're kind of contemplating it, they nod, they shake hands, and later on in the show, they will have a match to find out who faces them at New Year's, and my plan is who will face them for 2 weeks after the New Year's. After this, yeah, Anna Jay defeats Brandy Rhodes. Real quick, horrible rating, yeah. However, there was a reason for it. Dark Order swarms the ring, and they block Cody, who's trying to come into the ring, from getting to his wife. Brody saunters to the ring, he has a mic in hand. Brody says, "Cody, you certainly remember how some time ago, Brandy here declared war on me. How she said that the Nightmare family was going to take down my Dark Order. Well, I'm afraid I can't let that really happen. See, the Dark Order has things that we just can't allow, and people declaring war on us is one of those. You're lucky I was so patient with this. See, I can't just let something like that go unpunished, Cody. I don't care that you're one of the executives here. I don't care that Brandy is an executive. You stepped onto my land and challenged my Dark Order. Cody, you wanted a war? Well, you're getting a war. I'm pulling out all the stops, Cody. Send in some of your lackeys at me next week. I don't care. You can go for this title all you want. You're never going to get it. I will tear your confidence to shreds, Cody." Something that I realized as I actually had just started recording that I forgot to put in on the booking. Imagine like Arn Anderson, he's with Cody, and Cody just kind of sends Arn off somewhere. We don't really know where yet, but don't worry, that's leading somewhere. Again, this is not going to be, as I mentioned earlier, this isn't going to be a very good rated show, because I'm changing things with how I book. So, yeah, and I kind of screwed up all of that stuff, but it's very different for me, so, again, not exactly the best ratings. After this, MJF defeats Kip Sabian. A match that I hoped would go higher. Let's see. Garza's music plays, and he steps onto the ramp with a mic, not onto the mic, with a ramp. He says, MJF, I'm sure you're wondering why I immediately went after you. See, it's quite simple. It's because you don't know what a god is. I know you think that you're a god. After all, why shouldn't you? You have money, you have influence, and you have skill. I won't deny that you have that skill, but you know what? You worked for those, MJF. Moxley is not a god for those very same reasons. He's a god because he worked for that belt. He worked to get to the top of the mountain here in AEW. But here's the difference. That belt, it's not always there. Your wealth, it's not always there. Your influence, not always there. See, you claim that Moxley is a god, and yet here, you have a god in your very midst. Godhood is not earned, it is gifted. Your wealth is something you must sustain. Moxley's success is something he must sustain. I am a god because I am beautiful. I was born with greater looks than anyone else in professional wrestling, and I have always had those looks. You were once a little whelp trying to be tough enough to make it big. Moxley was once a kid diving through whatever he could find in order to be where he is. Those are enough for you to be gods, perhaps? How you once were low, how you once had lacked that which you now claim is your reason to be a god? No, no, no. I am a god because I am as beautiful as a rose. I always have been, and I always will be. Yet a rose has its thorns, Maxwell. I am not just a pretty face, nor are any of my rose garden. Perhaps you've beaten Kip tonight. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he is so beautiful. Yeah, I don't know why we're there. What matters is that he is still beautiful. All who are permitted into my garden are beautiful. There is a reason you are not permitted. You claim Moxley is a god, and yet you are not even allowed to sniff at the garden that I, the Rose God Garza Jr., have placed on this earth. You think you're better than me, and you know it. I know I'm better than you, and you know it too. And that little thing in the end, Garza kind of explaining his motivation. Really good segment rating for someone who's only unrecognizable. After this, we find out who faces at New Year's, and it's Kairi. Kairi defeats Mayu with a spear. Pretty good match. And then, Kenny Omega defeats Chris Jericho. I needed to have a really stacked main event to build the rating up because I knew this was not going to be a good show. So yeah. Afterwards, Moxley comes down to the ring and stares down Kenny. That's really disappointing. He says, Kenny, I know you're a great wrestler. You're one of the best in the world. Inside of the ring, you're a talent unlike any other. But outside of the ring, you're scum. You've betrayed all your friends in order to get ahead in life, and you're not even doing that well. You know what? I thought AEW would appreciate it best. I thought the fans would appreciate it best if you're back to how you're supposed to be. If you were that superhero character that everyone can look up to and that you have the talent to be. That's why I went with Tony Khan. That's why I went to go and talk to the person you care about most in the world. That's why I helped bring Coda here. And now, you're just going to deny him? You're denying Coda and me? Well, that's a bit rude, don't you think? Well, I suppose it's nothing for me to do. Think about yourself, Kenny. Think about what my title means to you. Moxley walks off backstage as Kenny's just doing a little bit of contemplation as the show goes off the air. 69. That was definitely carried by the main event. So, again, I am still working on a new way of booking. This is a very long episode because I have a lot of things to explain, and also, again, new way of me booking. So, eventually, a lot of this will get streamlined. A lot of this will get kind of condensed into some better stuff, better ratings in game, and hopefully just a better viewing experience for you. But we'll see if I have that down by the next time. So until then, see you later.